much for being here. And if you just joined us, it's still Enterprise Morning, reaching you from Enterprise Television. Let's get to our conversation for today. A professor at the University of Uyo, Professor Ignatius Udok, has been sentenced to 3 years imprisonment by the Akwa Ibom State High Court in Uyo, the Akwa Ibom State capital. Udok was convicted for publishing false election results and committing perjury related to the 2019 State House of Assembly election in Akwa Ibom Northwest. He was found guilty of charges brought by the Independent National Electoral Commission for his actions as the returning officer during the election in Asian Udim State Constituency. The charges included perjury and the publication of false results during the 2019 general elections. His conviction comes 4 years after Professor Peter Ogban, a professor of soil science at the University of Calabar, was also jailed for similar offenses related to election manipulation. Former Inec resident electoral commissioner in Akwa Ibom State, Mike Igini, played a key role in initiating both cases. My guest is Emeka Madunagu, journalist, public affairs analyst. Thank you so very much, Emeka, for being here.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I think just before we get into having our conversation for today, it's very important we lay down some things. And just before we get, of course, into it, let's at least have some specifics of the offense on the reference. On the 10th of March 2019, Professor Udok had earlier submitted a handwritten note detailing how he was chased away from the collation centers that he was forced to announce the results. Less than 24 hours later, he generated another result, came up with the official final results and declaring the winner for the election. He returned the winner for an election that there was no collation in any, mark that, any of the levels. No collation from the polling unit, no collation from the ward level, none. Absolutely at the local government area level before it got to him as returning officer. The Inec Council also criticized Udok's repeated court absence and the fraudulent medical report he used to delay proceedings. In one of those cases, Professor Udok actually, I don't know if he fainted or he pretended to faint in the course of
like they say, if you don't want to do the time, don't do the crime.
Don't do the crime.
That's it. All of those gimmicks.
Yes.
Have ended up, getting him into jail.
Yes, and interestingly, this is happening. It's a case borrowed forward from 2019. Of course,
will the man still go to jail? That's the question.
Okay, you mean he won't go to jail?
Will he? That's the question to ask. Will he still go to jail? When will the jail sentence begin? Because 2019 to 2025 is 6 years.
Now I catch your drift.
It's 6 years. So that might even count. That might even count in terms of calculating his custodial sentence. Yes. So that is why we are talking about speedy dispensation of justice. Why would we still be talking about a case in 2019? In 2025, for crying out aloud. What about 2023 cases? There have been elections in between. What happened? What about 2015? I mean, the problem with our political system is the absence of honesty, sincerity from the electorate, from the umpire, from politicians, and from even Nigerians themselves. Do we want an electoral system that works, or we want a system that allows just about anything? Why are we so eager? Why is it that there are very few people who will say no to inducement, during elections? Because these things have consequences. Why do we have that low threshold, against that low pushback, weak pushback against, electoral malpractice? Because people don't realize that elections have consequences.
Now, speaking about elections having consequences, I think in the statement or the report, when people wanted to clarify, on what exactly it is and the time in reference, they stated very clearly it was 2019, not 2023, as if the 2023 elections was transparent. Was it transparent?
It was how?
At all levels?
It wasn't. In fact, if we look at it was a shame. It was a big shame. From the primaries down to the elections, it was a disaster. It was a shame. And then that is why you see people asking questions. What is Inec looking for 126 billion naira for in a non-election year? This year, I think we are going to have only, basically, the only major election will be in Anambra State in November, apart from, by-elections here and there. So why will we be asking for 126 billion? To do what?
Subsidy is gone now.
And
inflation
INEC should generate his own money then, if subsidy is gone. No, if subsidy is gone, then INEC should generate his own funds, because we cannot be subsidizing failure. You blame the politicians. The INEC chairman came out some days ago to say that people should take action against delegate buying. What's the meaning of that? Why did you set up EFCC? If you are saddled with a task, you should carry out the task. How can you be reporting that people are stealing oil when you have the Nigerian Navy, you have various security agencies, you even have a private contractor, Tantita Security Services, that are supposed to stop oil theft? You are now reporting to us that oil theft is rampant, is rife, that these are the areas. What are you talking about? Am I the one who will go and stop oil theft? You see, so we should stop playing on intelligence of Nigerians. Let us realize, let's take notice that these things do not pay. Elections have consequences, and that's why we have bad leadership.
Now, in a bit, is it possible for us to maybe juxtapose Professor Ignatius Udok's case with Professor Mahmoud Yakubu side by side? He, of course, perjury, falsification of results, and so on. For Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, of course, it's not been authenticated. It's not like it's factual. It's allegations and all. But for someone who just who announced election results by 4 a.m. in the morning, and there were evidence of malpractices of all sorts, both from the Inec, from security operatives, from the beavers, and so on and so forth, and still he went ahead to announce. Don't you think it's same criminal offense as committed by his compatriots?
No, well, if the law has not gone ahead to criminalize the conduct of anyone during the election, I cannot do that.
We can't do that as people in the media.
No, we are not.
Bring the feet of those.
No, we cannot.
To the fire.
No. We can point out what was done and make recommendations, but we can't enforce those recommendations because we are not judicial officers. We're not prosecutors. But we hope that a time will come when people will be called to account for the roles they played in the criminal manipulation of Nigeria's elections. Not just whether 2023 or 2019. As far back as possible. When people will be called to account, I hope to see that day. Because people think that they can get away with anything. Look at this professor. What has he gained?
Yeah. His reputation, his everything.
Everything is finished. Everything is finished. He may want to go as far as the Supreme Court. But what is there? What is left? After having delayed the trial and everything, what is left? Somebody rising to the position of a professor. Come on. What kind of inducement will make somebody to joke with such an illustrious, prestigious achievement? Prestigious attainment of a professorial rank? Come on. Let people look at, the real things in life. The small things are the things that count. Integrity matters. But sadly in Nigeria, we don't count integrity as a major... we don't count integrity as a key factor in Nigeria. We don't, and what are we teaching the up and coming generations? That anything goes, that we cannot control ourselves, that we cannot say no to to manipulation of elections. If things are simple, as basic as elections, if we cannot conduct such things with a high level of integrity, what can we conduct? Is it census? We are talking of a census. Have we conducted any census in this country that passed beyond maybe 20% or even 10% test, integrity test? What else can we do? We don't know how many we are. I had a boss who used to say that we have a counting problem in Nigeria. We don't know how many we are. We don't know how many barrels of oil we produce. We don't know what, we don't know anything. So we just bandy figures about. Today, we're 200 million people. Tomorrow, 233 million. The next day, 240. We just bandy figures about. Yet, the whole world, the rest of the world is talking about big data. The rest of the world is collecting data. In many countries, one card, just your one card, connects all your registrations. But in Nigeria, your ATM doesn't speak to your driver's license. It doesn't speak to your international travel passport. It doesn't speak to your voter's card. It doesn't speak to your work ID.
Your NIN.
It doesn't speak to your NIN. It doesn't speak to your BVN. Nothing. How do you run things like that? That is why people can easily manipulate elections. That is why people still feel they can go and snatch ballot boxes. That is why people can, because they know there will be no consequences. But let me put them on notice. The world is changing. A day will come when a generation will arise that will say no more, no to all this malfeasance. And people will be called to account. They may be old. They may be in their 70s or 80s. They will be called to account. People should think very clearly. Look at this man, rose to the position of professor. Now, all of it has blown up in smoke. All of it has gone up in smoke. Nothing for him to claim anymore.
Now, so speaking about a professor, of course, which he is, you can help us maybe excavate the history behind having professors, as rec in the Inec. Was it because they felt they were thorough in their way?
Well, it was Inec that brought it up, because Inec chairmen have been professors, except Justice Akpata. Justice Akpata, and then I think Mr. Ibe Guabadia. People who have been, I think, Inec chairman. I think Ibe Guabadia, I think he was in the past. But anyway, within that line of succession, apart from Justice Akpata, you've had Professor Maurice Wu, you had Professor Mahmoud Jega, you have Professor Atahiru Jega. Then you now have Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, professor. So maybe they felt people within their own constituency of professors, would be, would be able to handle elections and make them above board, that they will be like Caesar's wife, above reproach. But sadly, we have seen that doing that has not inspired confidence in the electoral system. Because one rotten egg is as bad as the other one. There's no difference. So it is not about the hood does not make the monk. It's not about the profession. It's about the persona. The persona. Does the persona bespeak integrity, unimpeachable integrity? That's what we're talking about. And then we also look at politicians. Delinquent as our politicians are generally, they want power by all means, not to serve, but to steal, to loot the treasury. But a day will come, and I promise them, by the grace of God, a day will come when all of this nonsense will stop. Now,
that day would come when all of the things would stop. Is it ever possible? When you said we have a set of politicians who are delinquent.
Generally.
Yes. And
generally, not just a set. Generally.
Yes.
Nigerian politicians are delinquent.
Yes. But most importantly, we have an umpire that is equally neither here nor there. So when we have someone who is ready to give and someone who is so porous that he would love to receive, can we ever have a
that's why we need stronger institutions.
And who is a stronger institution?
You have the EFCC, you have the ICPC. As far as I'm concerned, those institutions are dead. ICPC and EFCC, they are dead. All the EFCC just does is run after petty fraudsters, internet fraudsters. Whereas the big cases are staring them in the face. They tell you, oh, during so-and-so election, they raided the hotels where people were sharing money. What has happened? Who has been prosecuted? Who has been jailed? They are just bringing up this Professor Oduk's case just to distract us from current issues. Why? To show that, after all, Inec is working. That's around nonsense. That's rubbish. 2019, they should be ashamed of themselves. They should be doubly, triply, 100%, 1000% ashamed of themselves. That you are bringing up a 2019, you are now blaming the man, the defendant. What are you talking about? You're talking about justice system.
So who is supposed to be ashamed of themselves? Is it the justice system?
Inec, the justice system, prosecutor, all of them should be ashamed of themselves. Because how can you tell me that one man can hold the entire system to ransom? Then that means something. Maybe there was pressure from above. That means some people were trying to thwart the judicial process. How come it is possible? It was possible for the National Assembly to pass the Police Act to favor one man to remain as the IG under 24 hours. And yet the National Assembly up till now has not commenced the process of electoral reform. That's another place I'm going to. Electoral reform. You cannot have free, fair, and credible elections without electoral reform. The Nigerian legislature is not ready. The National Assembly is not ready for fundamental electoral reform.
Now, when you talk about electoral reform, break it down for us, because we are always being inundated by electoral reform, the big catchphrase, but people do not understand in detail what is exactly the electoral reform that has to be taken care of.
Okay, good. We must use technology a lot. We have the beavers.
Which of course we
have the IRF.
Which we have.
But they are still in INEC's guidelines to election. They are not in the Constitution. They are not in the Electoral Act.
So if they are, what will be the difference?
Oh, the difference will be clear. It's IRF because it will be real-time reporting. Live from the polling units. Live. It will be coming in from the polling units. So there won't be the issue of, where results are tampered with. Mm-hmm. Like you see in this case, during collation, overnight, during collation, figures start changing. Electoral officers, like we saw in one case in Edo State, during the Edo State governorship election, the number of votes for one political party was more than the total number of registered voters. But with the IRF, that beavers, once you put your thumb on that beavers machine, it registers to a back end.
So the problem is not really with the technology. We already have the technology.
Yeah, but we must back up the technology with law. Then any tampering must come with consequences. Jail, if possible, life imprisonment. You see, there must be strict laws to make people, to bring people back to their senses.
That's where the laws, because let's not forget the people whom we intend to help us make the laws are equally beneficiaries of.
That is why that's what I'm saying.
Disadvantages.
We should be more interested in the character, the caliber of people going to the National Assembly, State Assembly, than even those going to governorship or presidency. Because those are the people that will make laws. If they make bad laws, if they make horrible laws, we will all suffer the consequences. That's it. Look at in the United States. You can see Donald Trump asking, who made this? Who signed this law? Something about Canada. But he was the one who signed it. It was the Congress that approved it. So, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? If a bad law is made by the National Assembly or the Parliament of any nation, the people will suffer. So we're talking about the electoral reforms. We're talking about the beavers and the IRF. They must be put in the Electoral Act and in the Constitution. 2, the choice of who becomes INEC chairman should be removed from the presidency. Yes, because it's open to manipulation. There must be another way. Maybe an open process. Maybe we can take Pricewater, PwC, ask PwC or some reputable agencies, ask people to apply. And then let there be a strict recruitment process. The same thing for resident electoral commissioners. The same thing for national commissioners. It should not be a situation where Jonathan, Dr. Glo, Jonathan's president, asked Buhari, who was former head of state then, to nominate somebody as Inec National Commissioner for Northwest, and he nominated his niece. What kind of process do you think will come from such? It should not be like that. It should not be a paddy affair. We should take elections seriously because elections affect our lives. We cannot afford to continue to waste whole lifetimes. People going through whole lifetimes without seeing good governance. It is criminal. It is criminal. So we must also look at the process of election, the process of voting. Where do you locate polling units? How are polling units chosen? Where are the polling units that do not have, that just have a few names on that register? Where are they? Why are they being used? Polling units with just one person, 2, 3 people. Then the process of collation. We should go beyond that overnight, having to take from polling unit to ward level, take to local government.
So what would
take to state.
What do you think should be
the
right
there
process?
Should be direct reporting from the polling units
to
the state offices, propelled by technology. That's why I said, once anybody puts their finger on that any beavers machine that malfunctions, you cancel the results, the entire results in that place. Let people begin to suffer the consequence, because let me tell you something, rigging, as it has been found, takes place where people are not popular. Politicians don't rig where they're popular. Rather, they go and rig where they're not popular. So what will happen is this. If the voter register is electronic and it's online for everybody to see, it will be difficult, for you to come and tamper with it. What you do, you have a cloud-based system. If you have a cloud-based system, the names are up there. When people come out to say they are coming for accreditation, all their credentials will be scanned. We can develop the technology, will be scanned. And once it's scanned, if it does not accord with what is electronically stored, then 0, that is cancelled. There's no way. So anybody let us start the ballot boxes, they're wasting time.
But let's not forget, technology penetration is a very big because in Nigeria.
It's
there are rural areas that there are no telecoms facilities there. They can't.
These things are deliberate. These things are deliberate. What are we talking about? But in those places, but politicians go to those places to campaign. There are no telecoms. Why? Politicians encourage, there are people who push bandits to go and destroy telecoms towers, to destroy transmission towers for electricity. What has happened to those people? We pamper criminals in this country, and that's why we have impunity. Let's fight impunity. Like somebody said, it's not just enough to say, that we have to stop the bad eggs. The chicken that lays those bad eggs should be killed. We should deal with crime at the root.
So in this case, we should exterminate Inec, because of course it has.
No, not exterminate. The integrity of people in Inec should be looked into. The choice, the mode of selection of people in Inec should be looked into. Then more technology should be deployed to elections. We should have more technological penetration in whatever we're doing concerning elections. There should be high-level technology. Look at what happened in Ghana. Within a few hours, the presidential election was over.
Done and dusted.
So what are we talking about? Let me tell you something. When they tell you that those rural areas cannot be accessed, it's a lie. In Borno, they vote in IDP camps. Because millions of people have run away from their villages. They're in IDP camps. They vote there. So who says that? Where are the IDP camps? They're mainly in Maiduguri, the state capital. So how come politicians, how come, wherever it is, it should be, the voter registration should be electronic. And it should be such that wherever it is, let's reduce the paper element. You know, there was a time we had manual voter register. And it was, you had to check. But gradually, all of those things are being discounted. Let's do away with a lot of paper processing. Then we must also talk about diaspora voting. The National Assembly is an enemy of good governance. They prove themselves to be an enemy of good governance by refusing to acknowledge, to allow for diaspora voting. Independent candidacy. Those are the electoral reforms we're talking about. Those are some of them. Independent candidacy. Then look at what happened during the primaries, where Akpabio and Lawan became candidates. Look at the process that they went through. Is that what we want in this country? And Inec has a chairman sitting there. There's somebody sitting as Inec chairman and just giving flimsy excuses for such. No. We must say no. No more. We must say no more. All these things we cannot allow, we cannot continue like this. We must say no more. No more. And then there should be a threshold for declaring a winner. Because you had, over 80 million people who are said to have collected their PVCs. You said you had over 90 million people, in the voters register. And then, at the end of the day, how many people voted? How many votes did Tinubu have?
About 20-something million.
How many votes did Atiku have? How many votes did Peter Obi have? When you put everything together, what was the threshold? What was the percent? That election should have been cancelled. Yes. Because it didn't meet any threshold. It didn't meet threshold of believability or acceptability. But because we know our problems, but as long as those problems affect the other person, not us, we are ready to accept it. We are ready to accept them. But we must begin to tell ourselves the truth. Those problems do not help us. They are militating against our progress as a nation. We cannot continue this way.
Very, very true. Yes, we cannot continue this way. Unfortunately, Professor Ignatius Udok is a victim of circumstance and this particular matter. But let's not forget that amongst those like him still working with Inec are a plethora of many other issues that should be dealt with, just like Professor Udok was equally dealt with, because the truth remains, just like Emeka said, we cannot have an effective governance in this country when the umpire is biased, when the umpire is selected by the person who wins the vote or who has been declared the winner. We can't, of course, have an election with such a setup or makeup. So we must get it right. Professor Udok is a casualty, and we hope to see more going forward in Nigeria. Thank you so very much, Emeka.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate you. All right, people, that's just about the time we have. I would love to believe you enjoyed our show today. Please do well to visit us. You can always find us at enterprisetvnews.com. You may equally like, comment, and follow us on all our social media platforms at Enterprise TV7. I am Henry Igwebike. Thank you for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.